While he was eating dinner, a woman came up carrying a bottle of very expensive perfume. Opening the bottle, she poured it on his head. Some of the guests became furious among themselves. "That's criminal, a sheer waste." This perfume could have been sold for well over a year's wages and handed out to the poor. They swelled up with anger, nearly bursting with indignation over her. But Jesus said, "Let her alone. Why are you giving her a hard time? She has just done something wonderfully significant for me. You will always have the poor with you every day of the rest of your lives. Whenever you feel like it, you can do something for them. Not so with me." She did what she could when she could. She pre-anointed my body for burial. And you can be sure that wherever in the whole world the message is preached, what she did is going to be talked about admiringly.
Fools, the lot of them, arguing about me as if I wasn't even there. I knew perfectly well what I was doing, and I still do. This was my holy moment with Jesus. I never thought it would be me, but it was. Each day holds its own surprise. But things were changing. There was more tension, more pressure, greater worry. I knew I could ease it for Jesus, calm him, soothe him. So I anointed him. I somehow knew that in the days ahead, it would include suffering, and I wanted my final words to be one of love. And at the end of it, Jesus said words I'll never forget. What this woman has done will be told of forever. Imagine.
They led Jesus to the chief priest, where the high priests, religious leaders, and scholars had gathered together. Peter followed at a safe distance until they got to the chief priest's courtyard, where he mingled with the servants and warmed himself at the fire. The high priests, conspiring with the Jewish council, looked high and low for evidence against Jesus, by which they could sentence him to death. They found nothing. Plenty of people were willing to bring false charges, but nothing added up, and they ended up canceling each other out. Then a few of them stood up and lied. We heard him say, "I'm going to tear down this temple, built by hard labor, and in 3 days build another without lifting a hand." But even they couldn't agree exactly. In the middle of this, the chief priest stood up and asked Jesus, "What do you have to say to this accusation?" Jesus was silent. He said nothing. The chief priest tried again, this time asking, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed?" Jesus said, "Yes, I am, and you'll see it yourself, the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the Mighty One, arriving on the clouds of heaven." The chief priest lost his temper. Ripping his clothes, he yelled, "Did you hear that? After that, do we need witnesses? You heard the blasphemy. Are you going to stand for it?" They condemned him, one and all. The sentence? Death. Some of them started spitting at him. They blindfolded his eyes, then hit him, saying, "Who hit you? Prophecy." The guards, punching and slapping, took him away.
You should have seen Jesus once they arrested him and pulled him up before the high priest. We were in the courtyard. People had been coming and going all night. This had been planned. But no sooner had Jesus been brought in than he was taken out again. According to rumor, he was on his way to Pilate, or Herod, or both. When they brought Jesus back, his head was low and his back raw. He looked almost dead. The authorities were trying to find some crime to pin on him. But how do you find someone guilty of peace, justice, and compassion? The soldiers took Jesus back out again. This time we knew it was probably for the last time. The leaders and the soldiers all looked so hollow, so convinced they were right, so sure they had nothing to learn. They thought they were doing heaven a favor. Who were they kidding?
Let us stand and sing together, God Weeps. It's in the screen behind me, or Voices, number 78. While all of this was going on, Peter was down in the courtyard. One of the chief priest's servants' girls came in, and seeing Peter warming himself there, looked hard at him and said, "You were with the Nazarene, Jesus." He denied it. "I don't know what you're talking about." Peter went out on the porch. A rooster crowed. The girl spotted him and began telling the people standing around, "He's one of them." He denied it again. After a laid eyes on the man you're talking about. Just then, the rooster crowed a second time. Peter remembered how Jesus had said, "Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." He collapsed in tears.
I saw what happened when Peter was asked, "Do you know him?" It was awful. I never meant to make him feel so bad. I thought Peter might be able to tell me more about the man they arrested. I was intrigued with Jesus. Anyone who dared challenge the authority of Rome in the temple, well, he couldn't be all bad. But Peter, cloaked in fear, couldn't hear the inquiry in my voice, only accusation. He got agitated. He said he didn't know what we were talking about. I could see him getting more and more upset. And when the rooster crowed, something seemed to snap. And Peter just crumbled to the ground in fear and shame. He looked as if he wanted the earth to open up and swallow him. Yeah, I know that feeling too.
The soldiers took Jesus to the palace, called the Praetorium, and called together the entire brigade. They dressed him up in purple and put a crown plaited from a thorn bush on his head. Then they began their mockery. "Bravo, King of the Jews!" They banged on his head with a club, spit on him, and knelt down in mock worship. After they had had their fun, they took off the purple cape and put his own clothes back on him. Then they marched out to nail him to the cross. There was a man walking by, coming from work, Simon from Cyrene, the father of Alexander and Rufus. They made him carry Jesus' cross.
All those words. And what comes of it? Nothing. Nothing prepared me for this. The one who looked so large when he shared loaves and fishes, so small and defeated. We stood by the roadside. Further down, we could hear the thud as Jesus fell. In the intake of breath from the crowd as his body jarred. Slowly, Jesus came past us, hauling the great weight of evil. He paused for a short gasp of breath as he drew near. Just as Jesus arched his shoulders to try to pick up the cross again, he saw us. Those eyes were burning with light. He muttered something that rasped in his dry throat, and with a surge of sacred energy, he pulled the cross one more piece. A stench of stale sweat lingered where Jesus had been. Splashes of blood blessed the stones, and a trail of splinters marked the roadway. Who could do this to Jesus, I mouthed. Who could do this to any human being? But no one would listen to me. I turned away. I turned into the road with the crowd and followed behind.
They nailed him mocked up at 9 o'clock in the morning. The charge against him, the King of the Jews, was printed on a poster. Along with him, they crucified 2 criminals, one to his right, the other to his left. People passing along the road jeered, shaking their heads in mock lament. You brag that you could tear down the temple and then rebuild it in 3 days. So show us your stuff. Save yourself. If you're really God's son, come down from that cross. The high priest, along with the religious scholars, were right there, mixing it up with the rest of them, having a great time poking fun at him. He saved others, but he can't save himself. Messiah, is he? King of Israel? Then let him climb down from that cross. We'll all become believers then. Even the men crucified alongside him joined in the mockery. At noon, the sky became extremely dark. The darkness lasted 3 hours. At 3 o'clock, Jesus groaned out of the depths, crying loudly, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? Some of the bystanders who heard him said, listen, he's calling to Elijah. Someone ran off, soaked a sponge in sour wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink, saying, let's see if Elijah comes to take him away. But Jesus, with a loud cry, gave his last breath. And at that very moment, the temple curtain ripped right down the middle. When the Roman captain, standing guard in front of him, saw that he had quit breathing, he said, "This has to be the Son of God." There were women watching from a distance. Among them, Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of the younger James and Joseph, and Salome. When Jesus was in Galilee, these women followed and served him and had come up with him to Jerusalem.
I was shaking. I was cold. I was horrified. I knew what would happen given the events of this week. But when it actually happens, it hits you like a bolt from hell. And what a miserable hell I was standing in right now. Even the devil must have been ashamed by what we had done to Jesus. Heaven was shattered, and as the rain fell and the sky closed in, you could feel the whole universe shudder and turn in on itself. I was frozen to the spot. I didn't want to be there, but I didn't want to leave. Others were moving away, and I wanted to go with them, but I couldn't. Every touch that healed, every word that loved, every loaf that was broken, somehow led to this place, and I didn't understand. I just kept standing there. And as Jesus breathed his last, mustering all the energy he had left, his head fell, his knees buckled and slumped, and my soul tore. The one who had given so much was dead. It was a deeper tear in heaven, a dark moment for creation. It seemed all the good in the world died, and I never thought I'd see Jesus' face again.
Late in the afternoon, since it was the day of preparation, that is, Sabbath Eve, Joseph of Arimathea, a highly respected member of the Jewish council, came. He was one who lived expectantly, on the lookout for the kingdom of God. Working up his courage, he went to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. Pilate questioned whether he could be dead that soon, and called for the captain to verify that he was really dead. Assured by the captain, he gave Joseph the corpse. Having already purchased a linen shroud, Joseph took him down, wrapped him in the shroud, placed him in a tomb that had been cut into the rock, and rolled a large stone across the opening. Mary Magdalene and Mary, mother of Joseph, watched the burial.
I love Jesus. I will always love him. No pack of lies could ever detract from the beauty I saw in him. Just looking in Jesus' eyes, you knew that you were loved, that you were blessed by God, that you were someone. Jesus brought so much hope to so many. Surely that could not have died with the broken body on the cross. They can't hurt Jesus anymore, I thought. Pain is gone. We watched Joseph Arimathea tell the soldiers to be careful as they took Jesus' body down from the cross. They made some sarcastic comment. Joseph scolded them. And Joseph himself took a linen cloth in it. So lovingly, so gently. Joseph was caring for Jesus as if he was his own child. We knew that we would go home and gather spices and perfumed oils and then come back to anoint the body. It would give me a chance to care for the one I loved one last time and say goodbye. But we would have to wait. The Sabbath was coming. And in that long, lifeless day, I waited and I wondered, well, what if Jesus had done things differently? What if things had ended up differently? Why did it have to end like this?